September 12, 1944, 14:20 hours, somewhere near Metz, France. The staff car pulls to a stop on a road that barely deserves the name, mud churned by 1,000 vehicles, shell craters filled with yesterday's rain, the smell of diesel and cordite hanging in the air like a permanent fog. Dwight D. Eisenhower steps out. 4 stars gleam on his collar, even in the overcast light. Pressed uniform, polished boots that somehow stayed clean during the 3-hour drive from Versailles. The Supreme Allied commander looks exactly like what a general should look like. Ahead, maybe 50 yards up the road, soldiers cluster around a half-track, stuck, axle-deep in mud. 8, maybe 10 men. Cursing, shoving, trying to winch the vehicle free. Among them, an officer. Muddy fatigues, helmet pulled low. No rank insignia visible from this distance. Eisenhower starts walking toward what he assumes is the command post. His aide follows, carrying a briefcase full of maps and casualty reports. Numbers that need explaining. Decisions that need making. The muddy officer is shouting something about cable angles. His voice carries across the churned field. Loud, profane, absolutely certain he's right. "Sergeant Kowalski, the cable angle is wrong. You'll snap it. Physics doesn't care about your manual." Eisenhower stops walking. He knows that voice. He's heard it in staff meetings in Algiers, in planning sessions for Sicily, in 100 arguments about supply priorities and tactical doctrine. That particular combination of certainty and profanity belongs to exactly one man in the entire European theater. Eisenhower turns back. The officer looks up. Helmet comes off. Face streaked with grease and mud. George S. Patton, Jr., 3-star general, commander of the United States Third Army, 250,000 men under his command, indistinguishable from a field-grade major. For a long moment, neither man speaks. Then Eisenhower says it. The sentence that will echo through military history. "George, you don't look like a general." Patton grins, doesn't salute, doesn't come to attention, just grins like a schoolboy caught doing something he knows he shouldn't, but doesn't regret at all. "That's because I'm not acting like one, Ike. I'm acting like a soldier." Sergeant Kowalski stands frozen, suddenly aware he's been arguing about winch cable physics with someone who commands 250,000 men. The other soldiers don't know whether to salute or keep working. Patton waves them back to the half-track. "Get that cable repositioned, 30 degrees, not 45, and use the double pulley system like I showed you." He turns to Eisenhower, still grinning, still covered in mud. "Came out to check supply routes, found this beauty stuck, couldn't just drive past." Eisenhower looks at Patton, at the mud, at the soldiers who've stopped working to watch 2 of the most powerful men in Europe stand in a field discussing vehicle recovery. "George, your chief of staff has been looking for you for 6 hours. I left a note." Forward positions is not a note, it's a hemisphere. Patton shrugs. The grin doesn't fade. "HQ knows where to find me. Same place I always am, with the men." Eisenhower wants to argue, wants to order Patton back to headquarters, where generals belong, wants to remind him that modern warfare requires coordination, not individual heroics. But the half-track cable goes taut, the winch engages, the vehicle lurches forward, climbs out of the mud. The soldiers cheer. Sergeant Kowalski looks at Patton with something like worship, and Eisenhower realizes this is a fight he won't win. Not today. This isn't the first time Patton has disappeared. It's the 7th time in 6 weeks. The pattern is always the same. Patton leaves headquarters with vague explanations. His staff loses track of him for hours. He reappears covered in mud or dust or blood, having solved some tactical problem that headquarters didn't even know existed. Bradley wants him court-martialed. Montgomery thinks he's insane. Churchill finds him amusing but unreliable. Eisenhower doesn't know what to think. Because the statistics are undeniable. Since Normandy, Third Army has advanced farther and faster than any other Allied formation. Casualties per mile gained are lower. Soldier morale is measurably higher. The numbers say Patton's method works. But numbers don't show what happens if Patton gets killed driving around unescorted in combat zones. They walk toward the command post. Eisenhower's aide follows at a respectful distance. "George, we need to talk about your command style." Patton lights a cigarette, offers one to Eisenhower, who takes it. "My command style is winning, Ike. You got complaints about results?" "I have complaints about risk. What if you'd been hit by German artillery? What if you'd been captured? Third Army loses its commander because you had to personally supervise a stuck half-track." "Wasn't supervising, was teaching. Sergeant Kowalski now knows why cable angles matter. Next time I'm not here, he'll get it right." "That's not your job, George. You have engineers for vehicle recovery. Your job is commanding 250,000 men." Patton stops walking, turns to face Eisenhower directly. "Ike, you fight the war of maps and telephones, coordination, alliance management. You're brilliant at it. But that's not the only war happening. There's another war, down here in the mud, with sergeants and stuck half-tracks and kids who don't know if they'll survive tomorrow. That war needs different leadership. It needs proper chain of command. It needs someone who gives a damn enough to be there. I can't order men to die from a chateau 50 miles away. I have to look them in the eye first." Eisenhower draws on his cigarette. Doesn't have a counter-argument. Because Patton isn't wrong, just impossibly difficult. "Brad wants you relieved. Brad wants everyone relieved who doesn't follow the manual. How's his advance going?" "Low blow. First Army is advancing half as fast as Third Army. Eisenhower knows it. Bradley knows it. Everyone knows it. Your methods aren't scalable, George. We can't run an army with every general doing what you do." "Don't need every general doing it, just need me doing it. You handle the alliance. I'll handle the Germans." They reach the command post. Before entering, Eisenhower turns back. "George, I'm serious. Bradley is formally requesting your relief. Montgomery supports him. I'm running out of excuses to keep you in command." Patton meets his eyes. The grin is gone. This is serious Patton, rare and therefore more powerful. "Then don't make excuses, Ike. Look at results. Third Army advances 12.7 miles per day. Everyone else averages 6.5. My casualties per objective are 17.8. Everyone else is over 30. My soldiers write home saying they trust their commander. Everyone else's soldiers write home asking when the war will end." "How do you know what soldiers write home?" "I read censored letters every week. Want to know what your men actually think? Read what they tell their mothers." Eisenhower has no response to that. Patton softens slightly. "Ike, you and I fight different wars within the same war. You need to be at SHAEF coordinating Churchill and Montgomery and de Gaulle. I need to be here with sergeants and stuck half-tracks. We're both right. We're both necessary. The problem is we'll never fully understand each other." It's the most philosophical thing Eisenhower has ever heard Patton say. Also, probably the truest. That night, back at SHAEF headquarters in Versailles, Eisenhower sits alone in his office. The leather-bound diary is open on his desk. He writes, September 12th, 1944. Found George in a field today, covered in mud, arguing with a sergeant about vehicle mechanics. This is becoming a pattern I cannot control. Bradley demands his relief. Montgomery agrees. Both make valid points. George violates every principle of modern command, disappears without notice, exposes himself to unnecessary danger, undermines the staff systems we've built. But the statistics don't lie. Third Army advances twice as fast as anyone else. Casualties are lower. Morale is higher. George produces results I cannot explain and cannot replicate. The question that haunts me, is George a genius who's discovered something we've all missed? Or is he simply lucky and his luck will eventually run out? I fear I'll only know the answer after it's too late. He closes the diary, lights another cigarette, his 12th of the day. Tomorrow he'll deal with Montgomery's demands for more supplies. Churchill's concerns about post-war Soviet intentions, de Gaulle's complaints about American predominance, the political war, the strategic war, the war Eisenhower knows how to fight. But George Patton is fighting a completely different war, and Eisenhower doesn't know which war matters more. To understand why this encounter matters, you need to understand how fundamentally different these two men are, not just in personality, in philosophy, in their core beliefs about what war is and how it should be fought. These beliefs weren't formed overnight. They were forged over decades, built from experiences that shaped two radically opposing approaches to the same problem. One man believed modern war was an organizational challenge solved by systems and planning. The other believed war was a human challenge solved by will and personal leadership. Both were right. Both were incomplete without the other. And the war would prove that both were absolutely necessary.
Eisenhower's path.
West Point, New York, June 1915. Dwight David Eisenhower graduates 61st in a class of 164 cadets. Not brilliant, not decorated, solid, reliable. The kind of officer who follows procedure and gets things done without drama. His tactical grades are average. Leadership scores are good but unremarkable. Nothing about Cadet Eisenhower suggests he'll one day command the largest military operation in human history. But his instructors notice something. Eisenhower is exceptional with people. He smooths conflicts, mediates arguments, finds compromises that satisfy competing egos without anyone losing face. In an institution designed to produce warriors, Eisenhower shows the instincts of a diplomat. World War I erupts. Eisenhower requests combat assignment. Denied. The army needs him stateside, training tank crews at Camp Colt, Pennsylvania. While other officers his age earn medals in France, Eisenhower teaches farm boys how to drive machines that break down more often than they work. It's not glorious, not what he wanted, but he learns something crucial. Modern war isn't romantic, it's mechanical. It's logistics and supply chains and maintenance schedules. It's getting thousands of men and tons of equipment to the right place at the right time in the right condition. The officers who charged with drawn sabers at Gettysburg got killed. The officers who plan and coordinate and manage complexity win modern wars. At least, that's what Eisenhower comes to believe. The 1920s and 30s are wilderness years for ambitious officers. The army shrinks. Promotions freeze. Eisenhower serves in staff positions under generals who become legends. First under John Pershing, commander of American forces in World War I. From Pershing, Eisenhower learns planning, large-scale coordination, how to move entire armies.
Then under Douglas MacArthur in the Philippines.
That assignment teaches Eisenhower something even more valuable: how to manage genius. MacArthur is brilliant, visionary, also egotistical, temperamental, and utterly convinced of his own infallibility. Working under MacArthur is like working for a force of nature that occasionally remembers to file paperwork. Eisenhower learns patience, tact, how to let a brilliant but impossible man think he's making all the decisions, while quietly steering him toward practical outcomes. Years later, managing Patton and Montgomery simultaneously, Eisenhower will use these exact skills. But in the 1930s, he's just a major trying to survive, Douglas MacArthur, without losing his mind or his career. His wife Mamie sometimes asks why he never seeks combat commands like his West Point classmates. Eisenhower's answer is honest. "I'm not a warrior, Mamie. I'm an organizer. Modern war needs both types. I'll never be Patton, but maybe I can be the man who makes sure Patton has what he needs to win." It's humble, self-aware, also completely accurate. By 1942, when George Marshall needs someone to command Allied forces in North Africa, he doesn't choose the most brilliant tactical mind available. He doesn't choose the most aggressive fighter. He chooses Eisenhower. Because the North African campaign requires more than tactical brilliance. It requires managing impossible personalities, making British and American forces work together, keeping Churchill and Roosevelt aligned, coordinating complex logistics across hostile terrain. Eisenhower can do all of that. Not because he's the best warrior, because he's the best organizer, the best diplomat, the best manager of competing egos and conflicting priorities. His war is political, strategic, organizational. He commands from headquarters because modern war requires it. You can't coordinate millions of men from a foxhole. You can't manage alliance politics from a tank. You can't plan campaigns spanning 3 continents while personally checking every frontline position. Modern generals use telephones and radios and staff officers. They study maps and logistics tables and intelligence reports. They plan, they coordinate, they manage. That's how modern wars are won. Eisenhower believes this absolutely. Then he meets George Patton and discovers that some men didn't get the memo about how modern war is supposed to work. Patton's Path. Stockholm, Sweden, July 1912. The modern pentathlon at the 5th Olympiad. 5 events designed to test the complete athlete: shooting, fencing, swimming, riding, cross-country running. 2nd Lieutenant George S. Patton, Jr., United States Army, competes for his country. 26 years old, wealthy Virginia family. Everything about him screams privilege. The first 4 events go well. Patton excels at fencing. He's trained with the best instructors money can buy. His shooting is controversial. He claims all 5 shots went through the same hole in the target. Judges rule he missed completely on 1 shot. Patton argues, loses, still places high. Swimming and riding are solid. Then comes the cross-country run, 4,000 meters in Stockholm summer heat. Patton starts strong. At kilometer 3, he collapses. Heat exhaustion, dehydration. His body simply shuts down. Medics rush over, try to help him off the course. Patton shoves them aside, gets up, stumbles, falls again, gets up again, finishes the race. Places 5th overall in the pentathlon. A Swedish reporter asks him afterward why he didn't stop when his body failed. Patton's answer becomes his life philosophy. Because stopping becomes a habit, I can't afford that habit. It's not bravado, it's belief. Patton believes willpower trumps circumstance, that the man who refuses to quit beats the man with better resources. That victory belongs to whoever wants it more and is willing to pay the higher price. This belief will define everything he does. France, September 12, 1918. Captain Patton commands the 1st American Tank Brigade at the Battle of Saint-Mihiel. 344 tanks. Most break down before reaching German lines. The ones that work barely move faster than a walking man. Patton doesn't command from behind the lines. He leads from the front tank. When German machine guns open fire, Patton climbs out, stands on top of the tank, directs other tanks forward while bullets crack past his head. A French colonel, watching through binoculars, thinks the American captain has lost his mind. Patton's infantry, watching their commander stand exposed to enemy fire, attack with fanatical courage. They take the objective. Patton gets shot, bullet through the upper leg. He crawls to a shell crater, continues directing the attack for 2 hours, refuses evacuation until the position is secure. Awarded the Distinguished Service Cross. Citation: displayed conspicuous courage and leadership in action. What the citation doesn't say, Patton believes a commander who won't share his soldiers' danger has no right to command them. This isn't theory, it's faith. The interwar years. Patton studies. Most officers study tactics and logistics, the mechanics of modern warfare. Patton studies history, ancient history, medieval history, military campaigns going back 3,000 years. He reads Caesar's commentaries in Latin, studies Alexander's campaigns through Persia, analyzes Napoleon's maneuvers across Europe, devours everything written about Frederick the Great, Hannibal, Genghis Khan, Gustavus Adolphus. He's not looking for tactics, he's looking for universal principles, truths about war that transcend technology and time. He finds one that appears in every successful campaign throughout history. Great commanders share danger with their men. Alexander fought in the front ranks at Granicus. Caesar crossed the Rubicon with his legions, not behind them. Napoleon exposed himself to artillery fire at Austerlitz. Gustavus Adolphus died leading a cavalry charge at Lutzen. Every legendary commander in history led from where the danger was greatest, not because they were reckless, because soldiers fight harder for a man who'll die beside them. Modern military theory says this is outdated, romantic nonsense. A general's value is in decision-making, not physical presence. Modern communications mean commanders can direct battles from safe headquarters. Patton reads this theory and rejects it completely. He believes modern military theory is written by people who've never been shot at. In 1940, Patton writes to his wife Beatrice, "Modern generals sit in chateaus miles behind the lines and order men to die while they sip wine in safety. I won't do that. Can't. If I ask a man to risk his life, I owe him the same risk. If that makes me outdated, then I'm outdated. But I'll win. Because men don't fight for generals in chateaus. They fight for the man in the mud beside them." Beatrice writes back, "You're going to get yourself killed, George."
Patton's reply, "Maybe, but I'll die doing my duty as I understand it."
The slapping incident. Sicily, August 3, 1943. The campaign is going well. Patton's 7th Army is racing Montgomery's 8th Army to Messina. It's not officially a race. Everyone knows it is. Patton is winning. He visits an evacuation hospital, wants to see wounded soldiers, boost morale, show the men their commander cares. He finds a private sitting on a cot, no visible wounds. The kid is shaking, shell shock, what a later generation will call PTSD or combat stress reaction. Patton asks what's wrong. The private stammers something about nerves, says he can't go back to the front. Patton loses control. He calls the kid a coward, slaps him across the face, screams that he's faking injury to avoid combat, orders him back to the front immediately. Medical staff is horrified. Word spreads. 6 days later, August 10th, Patton visits another hospital, finds another private with shell shock. Same reaction, same rage. Another slap. This time, journalists are present.
The story leaks. Public scandal. Congressional outrage.
Demands that Patton be court-martialed, dismissed, sent home in disgrace. Eisenhower faces an impossible choice. Politically, Patton is indefensible. He struck enlisted men suffering from psychological wounds, showed complete ignorance of combat fatigue, made the army look barbaric. Militarily, Patton is indispensable. No other American commander moves an army with his speed. No one else combines tactical brilliance with aggressive instinct. Eisenhower chooses military necessity over political comfort. He orders Patton to apologize publicly. Humiliating, but necessary. Patton complies, goes to multiple units, stands before formations of soldiers and admits he was wrong. It's the hardest thing Patton ever does, harder than any battle. Admitting error goes against every fiber of his being. But Eisenhower saves his career, barely. He writes to George Marshall, Army Chief of Staff, "Patton is indispensable.
Nobody else can move troops like lightning. Nobody else has his combination of historical knowledge and battlefield instinct."
But George won't survive politics. He has no filter, no sense of what he cannot say. I have to protect him from himself while using his talents. It's exhausting. It's also necessary. Patton, for his part, writes in his private diary, "Ike chose politics over warriors. He'll win the political war. I'll win the battles. We need both, but we'll never fully understand each other. The chasm between us is philosophical, not personal."
Two men, two philosophies, both absolutely convinced they're right. Both actually right for their different purposes. The alliance needs Eisenhower's diplomacy to hold together British, American, and Free French forces. The battlefield needs Patton's audacity to break German defensive lines. Disaster is what happens when you only have one. Miracle is what happens when you have both working together despite fundamental disagreement. In 9 months, the Germans will launch their last great offensive through the Ardennes. The alliance will face its greatest crisis. Everything will depend on whether Eisenhower can set aside his doubts and trust Patton's impossible promise. Whether Patton can set aside his contempt for headquarters procedures and trust Eisenhower's judgment. Whether two men who see war through completely different lenses can win the same war together. September 12, 1944. They don't know this is coming. Eisenhower drives back to Versailles troubled. The encounter with Patton has left him more uncertain than ever about whether to keep defending him against Bradley's demands for relief. Patton returns to 3rd Army headquarters satisfied. He taught Sergeant Kowalski about cable angles, probably saved lives on future vehicle recoveries. Time well spent, regardless of what headquarters thinks. Both men file reports on the day's activities. Eisenhower mentions vehicle recovery delays at Metz, notes 3rd Army commander was present supervising technical operations, questions efficiency of command structure. Patton doesn't mention the stuck half-track at all, just notes forward positions inspected, supply routes verified, morale excellent. Same incident, completely different interpretations. That's the fundamental problem, and the ultimate solution, and the reason history needed both of them.
The question that will haunt military historians for the next 80 years. Can you win modern wars with ancient methods? The answer, Patton and Eisenhower will prove together. You can't win with only one method. You need both. The ancient and the modern, the personal and the systematic, the warrior and the organizer. But first, they'll have to nearly destroy each other to discover that truth. The test is coming. October 14th, 1944, 600 hours. 3rd Army Headquarters, Nancy, France. George Patton stands in his office studying a map. Not the strategic map his staff uses for briefings, a detailed tactical map showing every road, every bridge, every piece of terrain within 50 miles of the front. Colonel Hobart Gay, his chief of staff, enters with morning reports and a worried expression. "Sir, staff meeting in 30 minutes. Supply coordination with 1st Army. General Bradley's people need your authorization on fuel allocation." Patton doesn't look up from the map. Reschedule it. Gay expected this. "Sir, General Bradley specifically requested. I'm inspecting forward positions today. E Company, 2nd Battalion, 26th Infantry. They attack tomorrow morning. I want to see their setup firsthand." Gay has worked for Patton long enough to know when argument is futile. "Shall I arrange security escort?" "No, just Sergeant Mims and the Jeep." "Sir, intelligence reports German patrols active in that sector." "Good. If I'm in danger, so are my men. That's the point." Patton folds the map, puts on his helmet. Not the fancy one with 3 stars prominently displayed. The standard issue helmet that makes him look like any other field officer. "I'll be back by 1800. Tell the staff to proceed without me on routine matters. Anything important can wait 12 hours. He walks out. Gay watches him go, then picks up the telephone. This conversation happens every few days now. Gay has stopped being surprised, started being terrified, because one of these days, Patton isn't coming back. 8 o'clock hours. 1st Army Headquarters, Luxembourg. General Omar Bradley's aide takes a phone call from 3rd Army. Listens. Frowns. "Sir, 3rd Army says General Patton is unavailable for the supply coordination meeting." Bradley looks up from his breakfast. "Unavailable?" "Forward inspection, sir. They expect him back by 1800. Bradley sets down his coffee cup with deliberate care. "Forward inspections? Does anyone at 3rd Army actually know where George is right now?" The aide hesitates. "They said forward positions, sir." "Forward positions? That's not a location, that's a hemisphere." Bradley stands, walks to the map covering his office wall. 3rd Army's sector spans hundreds of square miles. "Get Colonel Gay on the phone. I want to know exactly where Patton is." 10 minutes later, the aide returns looking uncomfortable. "Sir, Colonel Gay says General Patton didn't specify which forward positions, just that he's inspecting units scheduled to attack tomorrow." Bradley closes his eyes, counts to 10. Doesn't help. So, somewhere within a 50-mile radius, in sectors with active German presence, the commander of 3rd Army is driving around with no security detail and no definite itinerary. That's approximately the situation, sir. "Get me SHAEF. Tell them we have a problem." 10 hours. Supreme Headquarters Allied Expeditionary Force, Versailles. Eisenhower is in a meeting with supply officers discussing logistics for the winter campaign when his aide interrupts, whispers something urgent. Eisenhower's jaw tightens. He excuses himself, steps into the hallway. "George disappeared again?" "Yes, sir. General Bradley called. Patton left 3rd Army HQ at 0600. Destination unspecified. Expected return 1800 hours. Eisenhower checks his watch. 4 hours gone. 12 more before anyone knows if he's alive. "Bradley wants him relieved, sir."
Brad always wants him relieved. Eisenhower pulls out a cigarette, lights it. "Get me 3rd Army on the phone. I want to speak with Colonel Gay personally." The call connects. Gay sounds apologetic but not particularly worried. "General Eisenhower, sir. General Patton is conducting routine forward inspections." "Hobart, I don't care if it's routine. I need to know where he is. Right now. This minute."
Silence on the line. Then carefully.
"Sir, I don't have that information. General Patton didn't file a specific itinerary. He said he wanted to see units attacking tomorrow, but didn't specify which ones." "So you're telling me the commander of 250,000 men is somewhere in eastern France with no security, no communication plan, and no way to reach him if urgent decisions are needed?" "That's an accurate assessment, sir." Eisenhower takes a long pull on the cigarette. "When he returns, have him call me immediately. I don't care what time it is. I don't care if it's midnight. Immediately." "Yes, sir." Eisenhower hangs up, stands in the hallway holding the phone. His aide waits silently, knowing better than to speak. "Sir, your next meeting is the British supply delegation." "Cancel it. Reschedule for tomorrow." Eisenhower's voice is tight. "I can't focus on supply allocations when I don't know if one of my army commanders is alive or dead."
Meanwhile, 8:30 hours, 2nd Battalion sector, near Chateau Salin. The jeep pulls up to a farmhouse, serving as E Company's forward command post. No flags marking it as headquarters, no guards, just a muddy building with sandbags stacked around the windows. Patton climbs out. Sergeant Mims stays with the jeep, accustomed to these unannounced visits. A private standing guard sees the jeep, sees an officer approaching, comes to attention. Doesn't recognize the muddy 3-star general. "Sir, can I help you?" "Here to see Captain Morrison." "Captain's inside, sir. Shall I announce you?" "No need. I'll find him myself." Patton walks in. The command post is organized chaos. Maps covering every wall, radio crackling with reports from observation posts, officers hunched over tables covered in acetate overlays, showing German defensive positions. Captain Thomas Morrison looks up from a map. 24 years old, West Point class of 1943, commissioned 14 months ago. Already looks 40.
He sees the muddy officer, starts to ask identification, then recognizes the face, snaps to attention. "General Patton, sir." Patton waves him down. "At ease, Captain, as you were. Everybody keep working." The other officers in the CP freeze. One lieutenant nearly drops his coffee. Morrison recovers first. "Sir, we weren't expecting. 3rd Army didn't notify us of an inspection." "Not an inspection. A conversation. Sit down, Captain." Morrison sits, stiffly, clearly terrified. Patton pulls up a chair, sits across from him like they're equals, lights a cigarette, offers one to Morrison, who takes it with shaking hands. "How are your men, Captain?" Morrison knows the correct answer, the manual answer, the answer that won't get him relieved. "Ready, sir. Prepared to execute tomorrow's assault." Patton looks at him, doesn't say anything, just looks with those intense eyes that seem to see through pretense. Morrison breaks. "Sir,
We took 42% casualties last week. Replacements are teenagers, 18, 19 years old, farm kids. Most have never heard a shot fired in anger. We attack in 30 hours and He stops, can't finish. "You don't think they'll follow you?" Morrison nods miserably, can't meet Patton's eyes. "Show me your positions," Patton says quietly. "I want to see what you're working with." They spend the next 6 hours walking E Company's sector, not inspecting from a jeep, walking, foxhole to foxhole. Patton talks to every squad leader, sits with every fire team, doesn't give speeches about duty and glory, just listens. Private Anthony Del Vecchio, 19 years old, from Brooklyn, joined the army 6 months ago. In France 3 weeks. Tomorrow is his first real attack. He's cleaning his M1 rifle when Patton sits down next to his foxhole. Del Vecchio doesn't recognize him through the mud, sees dirty fatigues, assumes it's a major or lieutenant colonel. "How's the rifle?" Patton asks conversationally. "Good, sir. Clean." "Mind if I check it?"
Delvecchio hands it over, slightly nervous. Patton field strips it with practiced efficiency, examines the bolt, the chamber, the trigger assembly, reassembles it smoothly. Bolt's a little dry. Got oil? Yes, sir. They oil the rifle together, sitting in mud, not talking about tomorrow's attack, just the mechanics of weapon maintenance. Finally, Delvecchio asks, "Sir, you been in combat before?" Patton almost smiles. "A few times." "What's it like? The first time, I mean." Patton doesn't give him a hero's answer, doesn't talk about glory or honor or defeating tyranny. Terrifying. Your hands shake, your mouth goes dry, you're convinced you'll die in the next 5 seconds. Then you don't. 5 seconds later, you think it again. Eventually, you're too busy to think about dying. You just do your job. Does it get easier? No. You just get better at functioning while scared. They sit in silence for a moment. Delvecchio works the action on his freshly oiled rifle. The movement is smoother now. "Sir, can I ask something?" "Sure." "Why are you here? You command, what, 250,000 men? Why are you sitting in my foxhole?" Patton looks at this kid who might die tomorrow, who's cleaning his rifle with hands that shake just slightly. "Because tomorrow, I'm going to order you to risk your life. Least I can do is look you in the eye today." Delvecchio doesn't know what to say to that. Patton stands, moves to the next foxhole. Behind him, Delvecchio sits a little straighter, holds his rifle a little more confidently. 1400 hours. SHAEF Headquarters, Versailles. Eisenhower still hasn't heard anything. Third Army reports Patton hasn't returned. No communication. Bradley calls again. His patience is gone. "Ike, this is unacceptable. What if we need coordinated artillery support? What if Germans counterattack his sector? George is the only one authorized to commit Third Army reserves, and we can't find him." "I know, Brad. So what are you going to do?" Eisenhower doesn't have an answer that will satisfy Bradley. "When he returns, I'll speak with him." "You've spoken with him a dozen times. It changes nothing. He does whatever he wants, whenever he wants. Consequences be damned." "What do you want me to do? Relieve him?" "Yes." Bradley's voice is flat. "Replace him with someone who'll actually command from headquarters instead of playing soldier in the mud." Eisenhower wants to argue. Can't. Because Bradley isn't entirely wrong. A general who disappears for 12 hours with no communication is a liability, no matter how good his results are. "Let me think about it," Eisenhower says. After Bradley hangs up, Eisenhower sits alone, smokes, thinks. On his desk, latest casualty reports. Comparative analysis across all Allied armies in theater. The numbers tell a stark story. Third Army under Patton. Advance rate, 12.7 miles per day. Casualties per objective, 17.8. Soldier morale, from censored letters, 83% positive, mentions of command. First Army under Hodges. Advance rate, 6.8 miles per day. Casualties per objective, 29.1. Morale, 61% positive. British, Second Army under Montgomery. Advance rate, 5,2 miles per day. Casualties per objective, 3,3,4. Morale, 5,4% positive. Patton's army advances almost twice as fast, suffers barely half the casualties, and maintains dramatically higher morale. The statistics don't lie. But statistics don't show what happens if Patton gets killed inspecting a company-level position that didn't need a 3-star general. Eisenhower stubs out his cigarette, lights another immediately. There's no good answer here, just bad options and worse ones. 1600 hours. E Company sector. Patton sits with Captain Morrison in the command post. Maps spread between them on an ammunition crate serving as a table. "Tomorrow's plan," Morrison explains, pointing to the map, "calls for frontal assault across this open field, approximately 400 yards to German positions. Cover is minimal, just this drainage ditch, but it's too shallow for real protection." Patton studies the map, then looks at the actual terrain visible through the farmhouse window. "That's not what I see." "Sir? Your map shows flat ground." What do you actually see when you look out there? Morrison looks, studies the terrain he's been staring at for a week. The field slopes slightly downward. There's a small rise about 200 yards out. A rise the map doesn't show because it's only about 4 feet high. But 4 feet of elevation is enough to protect a man crawling. And this drainage ditch, you've actually walked it? No, sir, just observed from here.
Let's walk it.
They do. The ditch is deeper than the map indicates, overgrown with brush that's died back for winter but still provides concealment. And it doesn't run straight across the field the way the map shows. It angles northwest, closer to the German positions. Patton and Morrison spend an hour working out a new approach, using micro-terrain features the headquarters map doesn't capture. Terrain you can only understand by walking on it. Start your advance at 0545, before dawn, Patton says. Use the ditch for the first 200 yards. It'll get you closer than the map indicates. The rise gives you defilade for the next 100 yards. You're only exposed for the final 100 yards, not 400. Casualties drop by 2/3. Morrison stares at the map, then at the terrain, then back at Patton. Understanding dawns. Sir, how did you see that? I've been here a week. Because I looked at ground, not maps. Maps are tools. Ground is reality.
Never trust a map more than your own eyes, Captain.
They refine the plan together. Patton doesn't order changes. He suggests, asks questions, lets Morrison think through the logic himself. Make it his plan, not something imposed from above. By 1800, they have a better approach, lower risk, higher probability of success. Morrison walks Patton back to his jeep. The sun is setting. The autumn air is cold. Sir, I have to ask, why did you come here? You've got hundreds of units across the entire front. Why E Company? Patton looks at this young captain who's responsible for 140 men and doesn't know if he's good enough to lead them. Because you were afraid your men wouldn't follow you. Now they will. Not because I came, because you showed them you care enough to get the plan right. That's leadership, Captain. Caring enough to do it right, even when it's hard. He climbs in the jeep. Sergeant Mims starts the engine. Morrison salutes. Patton returns it crisply.
Good luck tomorrow, Captain. You'll do fine.
The jeep drives away into the gathering darkness. Morrison stands there until it disappears, then goes back to his men. Something has changed, not in the plan, in him.
23:45 hours.
3rd Army Headquarters, Nancy. Patton walks into his office. Colonel Gay is waiting, looking simultaneously relieved and furious. Sir, General Eisenhower has called 8 times. General Bradley has called 6 times. They both demanded to speak with you immediately upon your return. Patton checks his watch. Too late to call back tonight. I'll contact them first thing in the morning. Sir, General Eisenhower specifically said immediately, regardless of hour. Hobart, I've been awake 18 hours, drove 100 miles on bad roads, walked 5 miles of terrain. I need 4 hours of sleep before tomorrow's attack kicks off. Ike can wait until 600. Sir. That's an order, Colonel. Gay knows when to stop. Yes, sir. I'll inform them you've returned safely and will call at first light. After Gay leaves, Patton sits at his desk, opens his diary, writes, October 14th, 1944. Spent the day with E Company, 2nd Battalion. Good soldiers.
Scared captain leading scared kids. Fix their attack plan using terrain headquarters doesn't know exists because headquarters doesn't walk ground. Tomorrow they'll succeed with minimal casualties, and Ike will be furious I missed a meeting about fuel allocation. He fights his war from maps and telephones. I fight mine from mud and foxholes. We're both right. We're both necessary. The tragedy is we'll never convince each other. He closes the diary, sleeps 4 hours, wakes at 0400 to monitor E Company's attack by radio. It succeeds exactly as planned. 11 casualties instead of the projected 38. Captain Morrison earns a Silver Star for leadership under fire. Patton doesn't mention his involvement in any official report. Nobody at headquarters knows a 3-star general personally redesigned a company-level attack, except Eisenhower, who reads between the lines and gets more worried. October 15th, 1944.
8 o'clock hours. Schaeff Headquarters. Eisenhower and Bradley meet privately. No aides, no witnesses. Just two generals trying to solve an impossible problem. Bradley doesn't waste time. "George has to go." Eisenhower expected this. On what grounds? Insubordination, recklessness, disregard for command structure. Yesterday he disappeared for 18 hours. We couldn't reach him for urgent coordination. That's unacceptable for an army commander. We didn't actually need him for anything urgent, but we could have. That's the point. What if Germans had counterattacked his sector? What if we'd needed emergency reallocation of reserves? George is the only one authorized to make those decisions, and he was unreachable. Eisenhower knows Bradley is right, also knows Bradley is wrong. "Brad, look at these." He slides casualty reports across the desk. Bradley studies them. His frown deepens. Third Army's results are exceptional. Exceptional. Third Army advances 12.7 miles per day, almost double anyone else's rate. Casualties per objective are 17.8. Everyone else is over 29. Soldier morale is 83% positive. Next highest is your 61%. The last part stings. Bradley's face tightens. Results don't justify methods, Ike. If George's approach becomes acceptable, what happens to discipline? If a 3-star general can ignore procedure, why can't a colonel? A major? Where does it end? I'm not saying everyone should do what George does. I'm saying George should do what George does. Because it works. It works until it doesn't. Until George gets killed inspecting some forward position. Until we lose our best armor commander because he couldn't stay at headquarters where he belongs. Eisenhower doesn't have a counter-argument, because Bradley's point is valid. Modern military doctrine exists for good reasons. Command from headquarters. Delegate to subordinates. Focus on strategic decisions, not tactical details. Patton violates all of it, and wins anyway. The question that haunts Eisenhower: what if Patton is right and everything we've built is insufficient? Brad, what if you're wrong? What if George has discovered something our doctrine misses? Bradley stares at him. Then everything we learned at Staff College is obsolete. Everything we teach about modern command is incorrect. I don't believe that, Ike. Neither do I. Eisenhower lights a cigarette. But I believe Patton's results. And right now, I need those results more than I need doctrinal purity. Even if it costs you the alliance? Montgomery already complains about preferential treatment for Patton. Churchill questions your judgment. De Gaulle thinks you favor reckless Americans over professional Europeans. How long before Washington loses confidence in you? Eisenhower doesn't answer immediately. Because it's a real question with real consequences. Finally, Brad, you're asking me to choose between effectiveness and doctrine, between winning faster and maintaining proper structure. I can't make that choice. Not yet. Bradley stands. Eventually, you'll have to. And when George gets himself killed doing something unnecessarily reckless, I want it on record that I objected. Noted. After Bradley leaves, Eisenhower sits alone in his office. On his desk, statistics proving Patton's methods produce superior results. Also on his desk, incident reports proving Patton's methods violate every principle of modern command. Both true, both relevant, completely contradictory. He opens his diary, writes, October 15th, 1944. Bradley formally demanded Patton's relief. His arguments are sound. George violates procedure constantly, disappears without coordination, commands from foxholes instead of headquarters. Every staff college in the world would court-martial him. But the numbers don't lie. George wins. Faster, cheaper, cleaner than anyone else. His soldiers worship him because he shares their danger. His methods work. The question isn't whether George is right or Brad is right. They're both right. Modern war needs modern methods. But modern methods alone haven't produced George's results. If I choose George, I validate chaos. If I choose doctrine, I accept slower victory and higher casualties. I'm choosing to delay the decision. Perhaps events will decide for me. God help me if I'm wrong. He closes the diary, returns to work. The decision is postponed, not solved, and the clock is ticking toward December 16th. November 8th, 1944. SHAEF headquarters. Bradley requests another meeting. Eisenhower knows what's coming. This time Bradley doesn't suggest, he demands. Ike, I'm formally requesting General Patton be relieved of 3rd Army Command. Brad? Not requesting, demanding. George violated direct orders 4 times in October. He's been absent from headquarters for cumulative 43 hours. He's personally been under enemy fire 6 times. This isn't command, it's a death wish. His results speak for themselves. His results are luck. Modern warfare isn't won by one man in a foxhole. It's won by organization, logistics, systematic coordination. George undermines all of it. If a 3-star general can ignore procedures, why can't everyone else? Where does discipline end? Silence fills the room like smoke. Eisenhower speaks quietly. What if you're wrong? What if George is right, and everything we've built is incomplete? Then modern military doctrine is fundamentally flawed. Staff colleges, planning procedures, command hierarchies, all of it. I don't believe that. Do you? Eisenhower doesn't answer immediately, because the honest answer is, he doesn't know anymore. Brad, you're asking me to choose between effectiveness and order, between winning faster and maintaining structure. I can't make that choice yet. Eventually you'll have to. I know. Bradley walks to the door, stops, turns back. When George gets killed doing something reckless, when we lose our best commander because he thought he was invincible, remember I warned you, Ike. Remember I tried to stop it. He leaves. Eisenhower sits in the quiet office. Outside, staff officers coordinate the movement of millions. Inside, one man wrestles with an impossible decision. That night, he writes a letter to George Marshall. Writes it. Doesn't send it. It's found in his papers decades later. November 8, 1944. Dear General Marshall, George Patton may be the finest battlefield commander America has ever produced. He's also impossible to control, impossible to predict, and impossible to replace. I've built my career on organization and planning, systematic approaches, proper procedure. George succeeds through instinct and personal courage. He violates every rule I believe in. History will judge which of us was right. But right now, in this war, I need him alive more than I need to be proven right about doctrine. The tragedy is, I think we're both right, and that shouldn't be possible. Respectfully, Dwight D. Eisenhower. He seals the letter, puts it in his desk drawer, never mails it. Eisenhower doesn't know it yet, but he has 38 days. 38 days before German panzers smash through the Ardennes. 38 days before every assumption about modern warfare gets tested in blood and snow. 38 days before he'll have to decide. Trust Patton's impossible promise or follow doctrine's sensible advice. December 16th is coming, and when it arrives, there will be no time for philosophy, just decision and consequences. December 16th, 1944, 0530 hours, Ardennes Forest, Belgium. The fog is so thick a man can't see 20 feet ahead. Perfect weather for an attack if you're the attacker. Nightmare conditions for defense. 250,000 German soldiers emerge from the forest like ghosts. 1,400 tanks, 3 entire armies that Allied intelligence said didn't exist or couldn't attack. They hit the thinly held American lines like a sledgehammer against glass. Within 2 hours, 2 divisions are encircled. Within 6 hours, the front collapses 20 miles deep. Within 12 hours, the entire Allied command structure is in chaos. Nobody predicted this. Nobody prepared for it, except one man. December 16th, 1944, 1800 hours, SHAEF headquarters, Versailles. The map room looks like barely controlled panic. Officers cluster around tables covered in red markers showing German penetrations. Each new marker represents thousands of American soldiers cut off, surrounded, or retreating in disorder. Eisenhower stands at the main map. His face is carved stone. He's smoking constantly, 15th cigarette since noon. The numbers keep getting worse. 19,000 Americans captured in the first 12 hours. Casualty projections for the next 72 hours, 89,000. The entire Allied advance into Germany has stopped, reversed. Staff officers present options, all bad. Sir, we should pull back to defensive positions, consolidate, wait for weather to clear so we can use air support. Eisenhower's voice is ice. How long to establish a defensive line? 3 days, sir, perhaps 4. And how far will the Germans advance in 4 days? Silence. Nobody knows.
The German offensive is accelerating. Another officer tries. Sir, we could request British reserves from Field Marshal Montgomery. 21st Army Group could counterattack from the north. Montgomery needs 2 weeks to plan a major operation. We don't have 2 weeks. Eisenhower stubs out his cigarette, lights another immediately. His hands are steady, but his eyes show the strain. Gentlemen, I need real options. We cannot afford passive defense. We need to counterattack, blunt this offensive, push them back before they reach the Meuse. His chief of staff speaks carefully. Sir, organizing a counterattack requires time. We need to concentrate forces, coordinate logistics, plan approach routes, arrange artillery support. How much time? 2 weeks minimum, sir. Possibly 3 to do it properly. 2 weeks. While German panzers drive toward Antwerp, while surrounded American divisions get systematically destroyed. Unacceptable. Eisenhower makes a decision.
We're going to Verdun tomorrow morning. Emergency conference with all army commanders. I want options. Real options that don't require 3 weeks of planning. He walks out. His aide hurries after him. Sir, shall I notify the commanders? Yes. Bradley, Devers, Patton. Verdun, 1100 hours tomorrow. This is not a request. This is an order. The aide hesitates. Sir, General Patton may be difficult to locate. 3rd Army reports he's been forward again. Eisenhower stops walking, closes his eyes briefly, takes a breath. Find him. I don't care if you have to search every foxhole in France. Find George Patton and tell him I need him in Verdun tomorrow. Non-negotiable.
December 18th, 1944. 19:15 hours. 3rd Army Headquarters, Nancy. The phone rings in Patton's office. He's alone, studying maps, not of his sector, of the Ardennes, of the German breakthrough 80 miles north of his current positions. He picks up. Patton. George, it's Ike. Patton sits up straighter. Eisenhower's voice has an edge Patton recognizes. Crisis edge. Bad crisis. What do you need? Verdun, tomorrow, 1100 hours. Emergency conference. German breakthrough at Bastogne. I need options. Patton doesn't ask questions yet. Walks to his war map. Studies the Ardennes sector with practiced eyes. How bad is it? Bad. Multiple divisions surrounded. Allied lines collapsing. Germans driving west. If they reach the Meuse bridges, the entire front splits open. Patton traces potential routes on the map with his finger, calculating distances, timing, logistics. George, I need you at the conference to help plan our response. I can attack in 48 hours. Silence on the phone. Complete silence for 5 seconds. Then Eisenhower's voice, very careful. George, what are you talking about? I can have 3rd Army turned 90 degrees north and attacking toward Bastogne in 48 hours. George, that's impossible. You're currently attacking east toward the Saar. To pivot north requires... You can't just... I've already wargamed it. 3 weeks ago. I predicted this attack was possible. More silence. Longer this time. Patton can hear Eisenhower breathing, smoking. Finally. You predicted a German offensive through the Ardennes. I predicted the possibility. Von Rundstedt is good. If I were him, this is exactly what I'd do. So I prepared contingency plans. 3 different scenarios depending on whether they hit north, center, or south Ardennes. This looks like center sector. I'll need to confirm tomorrow, but I'm 90% certain I can pivot the entire army in 48 hours.
Eisenhower doesn't speak for a long moment. Patton knows what he's thinking. Every instinct says this is impossible. Every manual says it cannot be done. Doctrine requires 6 weeks to reorient an entire army. But Eisenhower also knows Patton doesn't bluff about military operations. George, you're commanding 133,000 men, 11,000 vehicles. You can't just rotate an army like a compass needle. Watch me. If you fail, I won't fail. George, if you fail, we lose everything. Germans break through to Antwerp, split our forces completely. We'll be negotiating armistice by February. Patton's voice is absolutely certain. Ike, if I don't try, we've already lost. You know it. I know it. Every hour we wait, more Americans die surrounded in Bastogne. Give me 48 hours. I'll have Third Army attacking north. Eisenhower makes his decision, not based on doctrine, not based on staff recommendations, based on 2 years of watching Patton do impossible things. Do it. 48 hours. Be at Verdun tomorrow. Brief the plan. I'll be there. The line goes dead. Patton stands holding the phone for a moment, then starts shouting orders. Gay! Get me all division commanders on the phone. I don't care what time it is. And get me logistics staff. We're pivoting the entire army 90 degrees. Colonel Gay appears in the doorway. Sir, pivot to where? North, Bastogne. We attack in 48 hours. Gay's face goes pale. Sir, that's impossible. I know. I've heard. Get me those commanders. Now. Gay disappears, returns 5 minutes later with 3 phones connected to 3 separate division commanders. Patton doesn't waste time on explanations. Gentlemen, start moving north immediately. Detailed orders will follow by 0600. Questions? Questions erupt. Dozens of them. Patton answers in rapid-fire succession. Fuel? Requisition from First Army depots en route. Authorization? I'll provide it. Route? Use any road heading north. Traffic control? I'll handle personally. Germans in our current sector? Leave minimum holding forces. Everyone else goes north. Timeline? 48 hours to first attack. Casualties? Acceptable if we win, unacceptable if we delay. By midnight, Third Army is moving. Nobody thinks it's actually possible. Patton doesn't care what they think. December 19th, 1944. 1100 hours. Verdun, France. The conference room is freezing. Ancient stone building with heating that barely functions. Generals sit in overcoats. Eisenhower enters. Bradley, Devers, Patton. Everyone looks exhausted except Patton, who looks energized, like he's been waiting his entire career for this moment. Eisenhower spreads maps on the table, gets straight to business. Gentlemen, the situation. German offensive has penetrated 40 miles. Bastogne is surrounded. 101st Airborne plus elements of 10th Armored trapped there. If Bastogne falls, Germans have a clear road to the Meuse. We need to counterattack immediately. Blunt this offensive before it becomes catastrophic. I need options. Bradley speaks first. Sir, we need time to organize properly. Pull back to defensive positions. 2 weeks to consolidate forces, then counterattack with full preparation. Eisenhower shakes his head. 2 weeks is too long. Devers suggests 6th Army Group attacking from the south. We can move in 10 days if we reorganize current operations. 10 days is too long. Patton has been studying the map silently. Now he speaks. I can attack in 48 hours. Every head turns. Bradley stares. George, that's insane. Difficult, not insane. Eisenhower leans forward. Explain how. Patton points to the map with decisive movements. Third Army pivots 90 degrees north, from attacking east at the Saar to attacking north toward Bastogne. We hit the German southern flank, break the encirclement, relieve the 101st. Bradley's voice is sharp with disbelief. George, you're talking about rotating an entire army. That requires months of planning, not 48 hours. It requires 48 hours if you don't overthink it. You can't just... Bradley stops, looks at Eisenhower with frustration. Ike, this is madness. Tell him it's impossible. But Eisenhower is studying Patton's face, reading something there. You've already started, haven't you, George? Patton almost smiles. First elements began moving last night.
I'll have the entire army reoriented by December 21st. Attack same day. Shocked silence fills the room. Field Marshal Montgomery's liaison officer speaks up, accent dripping with British skepticism. General Patton, Field Marshal Montgomery could attack from the north. Given proper time to prepare, say 3 weeks, 21st Army Group could mount a properly coordinated offensive. Patton cuts him off. 3 weeks. The war will be over in 3 weeks. We'll have lost. Proper preparation is essential for modern operations. Proper preparation is why we got surprised in the first place. While everyone was preparing and planning, the Germans were attacking. Eisenhower raises his hand. Silence falls immediately. George, walk me through this. How do you pivot 133,000 men in 48 hours? Patton pulls out papers, detailed contingency plans, route maps, logistics calculations, fuel requirements, movement schedules, all prepared weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, I wargamed a German counteroffensive through the Ardennes. It seemed logical. It's what I'd do if I were von Rundstedt. So I prepared response plans. Bradley looks genuinely stunned. You planned for this specific attack? Nobody in intelligence predicted. I didn't predict it. I prepared for the possibility. There's a difference. Patton spreads his plans across the table. They're detailed, thorough, not improvised. 4th Armored Division leads the attack. They're already rolling north. 81st Infantry Division follows. 26th Infantry Division behind them. 3 divisions hitting the German southern flank by December 22nd. Eisenhower studies the plans carefully. They're not sketches. They're complete operational orders. George, even with preparation, this timeline is extraordinarily aggressive. Aggressive is necessary. Every hour we delay, more men die in Bastogne. Bradley tries again. Ike, this violates every principle of modern operations. You cannot move an army this fast without catastrophic logistics failures. Patton interrupts, voice hard. Brad, logistics follow determination. If we're determined to move, we find ways. If we plan until it's perfect, we never move at all. That's not how modern war works. Modern war is still men and machines. Men move when led properly. Machines roll when there's fuel. Everything else is just bureaucracy slowing us down. Eisenhower makes his decision. The room can feel it. George, do it. 48 hours. Attack December 21st. Bradley stands abruptly. Ike, I must formally protest. This is reckless. Noted, Brad, but we're out of time for conventional approaches. Eisenhower looks at Patton. George, if you fail, we lose everything. Patton meets his eyes without flinching. I won't fail. You're betting the entire war on this. No, Ike, you're betting the war. I'm just making sure you win that bet. December 19th, 1944. 1400 hours. On the road north. Patton doesn't return to headquarters. Can't afford the time. He follows his army. The roads north are controlled chaos. 62 miles of vehicles stretching from the Saar to Luxembourg. Tanks, trucks, artillery, ambulances, supply convoys, all trying to move on roads designed for French farmers, not American armies. Traffic jams develop everywhere. Standard procedure: call headquarters, wait for staff coordination, issue orders through proper channels. Takes hours to resolve each problem. Patton's procedure: go there personally, fix it immediately. 2000 hours, major intersection near Luxembourg, 2 divisions trying to use the same crossroads simultaneously. Complete gridlock stretching for miles. Patton's jeep arrives. He jumps out without waiting for it to fully stop, starts directing traffic personally, stands in the middle of the intersection, points tanks left, waves trucks right, sends half-tracks straight through. Shouting orders over engine noise. Colonel Harkins, from 4th Armored, recognizes him, rushes over, looking mortified. Sir, we have military police for traffic control. Patton doesn't stop directing vehicles. Your MPs are at the last intersection. This one needs someone now. Either help or get out of my way. Harkins starts directing traffic alongside the 3-star general.
They clear the gridlock in 90 minutes. Third Army keeps moving north. December 20th, 1944. 200 hours. Fuel depot, Arlon. The depot is critically low. Third Army is consuming fuel faster than supply convoys can deliver. Patton arrives to find the depot commander, an exhausted major, staring at empty fuel bladders. "Sir, we're 600 tons short. At current consumption rate, we'll be completely dry by 0800. Then we get more fuel, immediately. Sir, First Army controls the northern depots. We'd need authorization from General Hodges, and at this hour, I'll handle Hodges. You start loading every available truck. We're taking what we need from First Army stocks." "Sir, that's technically unauthorized requisition." "Consider it authorized. Load the trucks." Patton gets on the radio to First Army headquarters, demands Hodges personally, gets stonewalled by staff officers protecting their sleeping commander. "Tell General Hodges that Third Army is requisitioning 600 tons of fuel from his northern depots under emergency authority. He can file a complaint with General Eisenhower tomorrow. Tonight, I'm taking that fuel." He cuts the transmission before they can argue. The fuel arrives by 0400. Third Army keeps moving. Later that morning, Hodges complains bitterly to Bradley. Bradley complains to Eisenhower. Eisenhower's response? "If George reaches Bastogne, nobody will care about fuel requisitions. If he fails, we're all getting relieved anyway. Let him work." December 20th, 1944. 1400 hours. Halfway point. Third Army is 50% pivoted, moving from east-facing to north-facing orientation. Doctrine says this is impossible. Patton is doing it anyway. Why does it work? Because Patton doesn't command from headquarters. He's physically present at every choke point, every delay, every problem that would normally require hours of radio coordination. Bridge weight limits uncertain? Patton drives a Sherman across personally to verify capacity. Route congested with disabled vehicles. Patton reorganizes traffic flow in real time. Fuel shortage at forward depots. Patton requisitions supplies immediately. Authorization debates happen later. Unit commanders confused about conflicting orders. Patton appears in person, clarifies priorities, moves on. It's not doctrine. It's not efficient by any staff college standard. It violates every principle of modern command structure. But it works. While headquarters would spend hours coordinating solutions through proper channels, Patton solves problems in minutes by being physically present. His staff is terrified he'll be killed. His soldiers are inspired that their commanding general shares their hardships. Third Army keeps moving north at a pace military historians will later call miraculous. December 21st, 1944. 200 hours. Somewhere on a muddy road, Patton collapses. Not dramatically, he just stops moving, sits down in the jeep, closes his eyes. Sergeant Mims notices immediately. "Sir, you okay?" Patton doesn't answer right away. He hasn't slept in 42 hours, hasn't eaten a proper meal in 24. He's 59 years old. His body is shutting down. "Sir?" Mims repeats, worried now. Patton forces his eyes open. "Coffee. Need coffee." They find a supply truck. Patton drinks 3 cups of terrible, bitter coffee. It doesn't help much, but provides temporary stimulation. Colonel Gay catches up to their position, takes one look at Patton and knows. "Sir, you need to rest. Medical staff says, I'll rest when we reach Bastogne." "Sir, you're going to kill yourself at this pace." "Better than letting the 101st die slowly, because I was comfortable." Patton drinks another cup of coffee. His hands shake slightly. Gets back in the jeep anyway. They keep moving north. December 21st, 1944. 800 hours. German artillery hits a Third Army convoy. Casualties. Panic among replacement troops experiencing their first combat. Standard response. Halt movement. Organize medical evacuation. Wait for all clear. Resume when safe. Estimated time lost, 3 hours minimum. Patton arrives at the hit location within 20 minutes. He's been moving with the forward columns. Finds medics loading wounded,
soldiers taking cover, officers trying to restore order. Patton starts loading wounded personally, doesn't give orders, just does the work. Soldiers see their 3-star general lifting stretchers, carrying plasma bags, getting blood on his uniform. They stop panicking, start helping. Within 30 minutes, casualties are loaded. Convoy is moving again. A young lieutenant asks hesitantly, "Sir, shouldn't we wait for the artillery barrage to end?" Patton looks at him directly.
"Son, the best way to stop their artillery is to reach their positions and destroy them. Keep this convoy moving." Time lost, 30 minutes instead of 3 hours. That's the difference. Patton's physical presence doesn't just inspire morale, it accelerates decision-making. Problems get solved immediately instead of flowing through bureaucratic channels. December 21st, 1944. 1400 hours. 48 hours after Patton's promise, Third Army attacks northward toward Bastogne, exactly on schedule. Impossible, according to every military manual ever written. Accomplished anyway. 4th Armored Division leads the assault, hits German defensive positions with concentrated fury, not because they're better trained or equipped than other American divisions, because they know their commanding general is with them. Not at some chateau reading reports, actually with them in the snow and mud, taking the same risks. That knowledge changes men, makes them fight harder, push farther, endure more. December 22nd through 25th. The grinding fight for Bastogne. 4th Armored Division advances, mile by bloody mile. German resistance is ferocious. Panzers counterattack repeatedly. Artillery pounds American positions. Casualties mount steadily. Progress slows, but doesn't stop. Patton is everywhere. Frontline positions, aid stations, supply points, ammunition depots. Appears where needed, solves problems, moves on. He sleeps 4 hours total over 4 days, loses 14 pounds. His hands shake from exhaustion and stress. Medical officers beg him to rest. He refuses every time. Beatrice sends a telegram, December 24th. "George, you're killing yourself. Please rest." Patton's reply is brief. "Doing my duty. Duty doesn't rest." December 26th, 1944. 1650 hours. 4th Armored Division breaks through to Bastogne. The encirclement is shattered. 101st Airborne is saved. The German offensive is blunted. The crisis isn't over. Fighting will continue for weeks, but the worst danger has passed. Eisenhower calls Patton personally within an hour of receiving confirmation. "George, you did it! The impossible!" Patton is too exhausted for triumph. His voice is hoarse. "Third Army did it, Ike. I just pointed the direction." "How do you feel?" "Like I've been hit by several trucks. But Bastogne is relieved. That's what matters." "George, get some rest. That's an order." "Soon." But that night, Patton collapses completely. Heart palpitations, severe dehydration, extreme exhaustion. His body simply quits. Medics have to physically restrain him. He fights them even in his weakened state. "I'm needed at the front." "Sir, you're having cardiac episodes. You need immediate rest or you'll die." They sedate him. First real sleep in 6 days. While he sleeps, the numbers are compiled. 3rd Army's Bastogne pivot. Personnel moved, 133,178 men. Vehicles moved, 11,178. Distance, average 100 miles per unit. Time, 48 hours. Casualties during movement, 104, mostly from the December 21st artillery strike. Comparison, Operation Market Garden, Montgomery, September 1944. Personnel, 35,000. Planning time, 6 weeks. Execution casualties, 10,000 plus. Patton moved 4 times as many men in 1/30th the time, with 1/100th the casualties. The lesson is undeniable. Sometimes the old way, personal leadership, battlefield presence, rapid decision-making, beats modern staff procedures. And military historians still can't fully explain why. December 28th, 1944. 3rd Army Field Hospital, Luxembourg. Eisenhower visits Patton. comes alone. No aides, no staff, just two generals who've argued for 2 years about how to fight wars. Patton is awake but weak. Medical staff says his heart sustained damage. Not permanent, but he needs weeks of rest. Real rest. Eisenhower sits beside the bed. For a long time, neither speaks. Finally, Eisenhower breaks the silence. "You were right, George." "About what?" "Everything. Your method, your philosophy. I spent 2 years thinking you were reckless, outdated, dangerous to yourself and the army." "You weren't wrong, Ike. I am all those things. But you're also effective in ways I don't understand, ways the manuals don't explain, ways I can't replicate." Patton shifts slightly in bed, winces from pain. "Different wars, Ike. You fight the strategic war, political, coalition management. I fight the tactical war, soldiers and terrain and immediate decisions. Both are necessary. But your way wins faster when speed matters. My way wins different, not necessarily better. Bastogne needed rapid response, so my method worked. Other situations need your approach. Careful planning, resource coordination, alliance management. Neither of us is complete without the other." Eisenhower pulls out cigarettes, offers one to Patton. Patton shakes his head weakly. "Doctors won't allow it." "Since when do you listen to doctors?" "Since they threatened more sedation." Eisenhower almost smiles, lights his own cigarette. Then, serious again. "George, I need to know something. Would you do it all again? The disappearances, ignoring protocols, risking everything on personal presence." Patton doesn't hesitate. "Yes. Even knowing I can't officially sanction it. Even knowing it undermines the staff systems I've built." "Ike, those staff systems are essential for administration, for coordination across theaters. But war isn't just administration. War is also will. You have the will to hold impossible alliances together. I have the will to break enemy formations. We need both. Brad still wants you court-martialed for those fuel requisitions." Patton's response is weak but defiant. "Let him try. I'll plead guilty and ask the court whether they wanted Bastogne to fall while we waited for proper authorization paperwork." Eisenhower actually laughs. Tired, exhausted laughter, but genuine. "You're impossible, George." "I'm effective. There's a difference." They sit quietly. Two men who see war through completely different lenses, who've argued constantly, who need each other to win. Eisenhower speaks softly. "George, I envy you." Patton looks surprised. "Why?" "You have certainty. You know what you believe. You know your methods work. I have to balance what I believe against what the alliance needs, against what's politically acceptable. You can afford to be absolutely right. I have to afford to be acceptably correct." "Is that what this war is about? Being acceptable?" "No, it's about winning in a way that doesn't destroy us afterward. You win battles, George. I have to win the peace that follows. Both matter." Patton considers this. "So we're both right for different purposes?" "Yes." "Then what happens now, after the war?" Eisenhower stands to leave, pauses at the door, turns back. "You keep doing what you do. I keep doing what I do. We win this war together. Then history decides which approach matters more." Patton's voice is getting weaker, sleep pulling him down. "History won't decide, Ike. We're both right. We just answer different questions." Eisenhower nods slowly. "Get some rest, George. That's an order you can't ignore." "Watch me try." But Patton's eyes are already closing, exhaustion finally winning. Eisenhower leaves quietly. Outside, the war continues, but the crisis is past, because two men who shouldn't work together found a way to win together. One who planned from headquarters, one who fought from foxholes. Both necessary, both right, both incomplete without the other. The aftermath. 4 months pass. Germany surrenders May 8, 1945. Eisenhower becomes a global hero, the general who organized victory, held together an impossible alliance, coordinated the largest military operation in human history. Patton becomes a problem. In victory, his virtues become vices. The aggression that won battles now targets the wrong enemies. He makes speeches about the Soviets being the real threat, suggests America fought the wrong enemy, advocates for war with Russia while American soldiers just want to go home. Washington is horrified. Eisenhower is forced to act. September 1945. Patton is relieved of 3rd Army Command, reassigned to 15th Army, a paper organization handling records and historical documentation. Busy work for a warrior. Patton is devastated. 3rd Army was his life's work. Now he shuffles papers in Bavaria. He writes to Beatrice, "They want me to fade quietly. I don't know how. Fighting is all I've ever known." December 9th, 1945. 11:45 hours. Near Mannheim, Germany. Patton is going pheasant hunting, rare day off from the records job he despises. His car, a 1938 Cadillac, is hit by an army truck at an intersection. Low-speed collision. The truck driver walks away with minor bruises. Patton is thrown forward violently. His neck strikes something hard. Instant paralysis from the neck down. They rush him to a hospital in Heidelberg. Best military doctors in Europe. Nothing they can do. The spinal damage is catastrophic. Patton lies in a hospital bed, unable to move anything below his neck, can barely speak, knows he's dying. December 18th, 1945. Eisenhower visits. The room is quiet. Patton looks diminished in the hospital bed. This man who commanded 250,000 soldiers, who terrified German generals, who pivoted an army in 48 hours, now he can't lift his hand. Eisenhower sits beside the bed. Neither speaks for a long time. Finally, Patton's voice weak and rough. "Ike, did we win the right way?" Eisenhower doesn't understand immediately. "George, we won. That's what matters." "No." Patton's eyes are still fierce, even though his body is broken. "How we won matters. For next time. There won't be a next time like this." "There's always a next time." Patton coughs. Breathing is difficult. "You fought your war. I fought mine. Which one matters more?" Eisenhower doesn't have an answer, because he still doesn't know. "Both, George. Both mattered. We needed both." Patton almost smiles. Diplomatic answer. Very you. Silence settles again. "Ike, promise me something." "Anything." "Don't let them forget. Not the tactics, the principle. Leaders belong with their people. Don't let them teach that headquarters alone is enough." Eisenhower nods, can't speak past the tightness in his throat. Patton's voice fades. "And Ike, you were right too, about politics, alliances. I never understood that part. Didn't want to. But you were right." "We were both right, George." "Yeah, both right. Both necessary." His eyes close. That's the lesson. Don't forget it. December 21st, 1945. 17:50 hours. George S. Patton Jr. dies. Age 59. Cause of death: pulmonary embolism and congestive heart failure secondary to spinal injury. Some call it an accident. Some suspect darker causes. The truth is simpler and sadder. A warrior who never learned how to stop fighting finally stopped. December 24th, 1945. Luxembourg American Cemetery. Patton is buried among his soldiers. He specifically requested it in his will. Didn't want special treatment. Wanted to rest with the men he commanded. Eisenhower attends the funeral, stands at the grave while thousands watch. He places his own 4-star medal on the casket, whispers something nobody else hears. "You were right, George. Not about everything, but you were right when it mattered most." The casket is lowered into frozen ground. 3rd Army soldiers serve as pallbearers, hard men who've seen everything, and some are crying. Crying for a general who slept in foxholes beside them, who shared their dangers, who led from the front when modern doctrine said generals belonged in the rear. Eisenhower watches the burial, thinks about Patton's question. Did we win the right way? He still doesn't know the answer. Maybe there isn't one single answer. The question endures. 1952, 7 years after Patton's death. Dwight D. Eisenhower is elected President of the United States, first general to become president since Grant. He writes his memoir, Crusade in Europe. There's a chapter on Patton. The published version says, George Patton was the most brilliant commander of an army in the open field that our or any other service produced. What Eisenhower doesn't publish, what stays in his private papers until decades later. History needed both of us, someone to win battles with audacity, someone to win peace with patience. George and I represented two necessary poles of leadership. We clashed because we were both right, for different purposes. The tragedy is we couldn't tell each other that until it was too late. The legacy. The question never dies. In every military academy, every staff college, every war college around the world, cadets study Patton and Eisenhower. The question is always the same. Which method wins modern wars? Personal leadership or systematic organization? The answer depends on who you ask. Marine Corps doctrine emphasizes Patton's approach. Officers eat last, lead from the front. Special operations forces adopt Patton's methods. Commanders deploy with their teams. Conventional military forces follow Eisenhower's model. Command from headquarters, systematic delegation. Pentagon strategic planning, pure Eisenhower. Modern war is too complex for personal leadership at the highest levels. Both sides marshal evidence. Both sides are right. Because the real answer is, you need both. The final numbers. The complete accounting of what each man accomplished. Third Army under Patton, June 1944 to September 1945. Total distance advanced, 1,280 miles across France and Germany. Enemy soldiers killed or captured, 1,443,888. Third Army casualties, 137,354. Average advance rate, 12.7 miles per day. Casualties per objective, 17.8. Soldier morale, censored letters analysis, 83% positive. Other Allied armies, same period, average. Average advance rate, 6.5 miles per day. Average casualties per objective, 30.1. Average morale indicators, 59% positive. Patton's method produced measurably superior results in every category. But Eisenhower coordinated 5 million men across 3 continents, managed 3 Allied nations with conflicting interests, held together a coalition that by all rights should have collapsed into mutual recrimination. Different scales, different challenges, both absolutely necessary. You cannot build an army of Pattons. Men with his combination of courage, historical knowledge, tactical instinct, and willingness to share danger are rare. Perhaps one per generation. But you cannot win modern wars without systematic organization either. The scale is too vast, the complexity too great. The synthesis nobody achieved. 1 Patton per army, 1 Eisenhower per theater, working together despite philosophical differences. When you have both, you win wars decisively. When you only have one, you win slower, or not at all. 80 years later, present day. The Patton-Eisenhower debate continues. Startup founders quote Patton, move fast, lead from the front, share the risks. Corporate executives quote Eisenhower, build systems, plan carefully, manage complexity. Military theorists still argue which approach matters more. The answer hasn't changed in 80 years. Both. You need the person who sees what systems cannot see, and you need the person who builds the systems. You need the leader who'll sit in foxholes with terrified soldiers, and you need the leader who'll sit in rooms with difficult allies. You need the general who disappears for 18 hours to save one company, and you need the general who stays at headquarters to save the entire alliance. Neither is complete without the other. The challenge isn't choosing between them. It's recognizing which one you need for which problem, and having the wisdom to let each work their way, even when it conflicts with your preferences. The final echo.
somewhere in France. A muddy road near Metz. September 12th, 1944. If you close your eyes, you can still hear it. A 3-star general covered in mud. A 4-star general in pressed uniform. "George, you don't look like a general." "That's because I'm not acting like one, Ike. I'm acting like a soldier." History needed both men. It still does. The warrior who charges into the mud, and the diplomat who coordinates the entire effort. The tactician and the strategist. The instinct and the system. The audacity and the patience. Patton and Eisenhower. Thunder and rain. Both necessary to win wars. Both necessary to secure peace. Both right. Forever.